Hey, welcome to Squarebody Stuff. I'm Chad, and right now we're in Old Cream Puff, heading to go get our beef that we had butchered. We try to do at least one a year. That way we have plenty of beef in the freezer. Just thought I'd start out this video a little bit different, just a little bit of average stuff I do during my day. And you know, we're in a Squarebody, so anyhow, when I get done getting the beef picked up and doing some other chores, or not chores, running around, I got to pick up some stuff. I very rarely go to town unless I just have to. I like to stay out in my shop, on my own place, just away from the rest of the world. And so yeah, we'll be getting back to the shop after I get my run around done and getting started on Squeaky's drive shaft again. If you haven't followed along, know what happened, go back a few videos. We threw the drive shaft at No Name Nationals, so I haven't even really got to make one full pass on the truck on the drag strip since we put the big block in him, and gears and rear suspension work and everything. So I'm really anxious to getting back to the track, but to do that I really need to change the carrier bearing out on that two-piece drive shaft. I've got a solid bearing, it's just a pillow block bearing that I think should work, but it may need a little modification to get the angles and everything right. So we're going to do that hopefully this weekend. Saturday, well, this Saturday and next Saturday on the calendar for my drag strip that I go to, Ozark Raceway Park in Rogersville, Missouri. They've only got 2 more testing tunes on their calendar, and that's all I'm interested in right now, and I think that's all I've got. I don't think they have any more bracket racing, anything going on. It's just gonna be some testing tunes on Saturday, but they're also calling for rain this Saturday, so I don't know. I really don't like the idea anymore of going to Mexico because it's just a little too risky. I don't need to get in trouble, but we might have to, because I haven't had that nitrous hit yet that I'm craving, and I think you guys are craving it too. So I'm gonna get my running around done. We'll get back in the shop, get to working on Squeaky. I've also got another little doodad I'm gonna put on him, a Nitrous Express nitrous controller. I'm not sure if I'll do that in this video, but keep an eye on that. I may do it in the next video. Try not to get too much in one video and string it out too far, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Set me out some T-bones for supper tonight. So any of you that might be curious that's never had fresh beef butchered on what the cost might be, here's the receipt, invoice, whatever you want to call it. It was 393 pounds is the amount of meat we had processed. That's not the weight of the steer. It was, I think it was close to, it was over 700 pounds, 700 to 800 pounds. So with your slaughter fee, your disposal fee, and everything else, the total was $365 and some change. And you know, I really don't know how much money I had in the steer as far as raising it. It was one we raised out of our cow, or one of our cows, so you know, maybe a couple $100 in a cow or in a steer, that, you know, raising it for that long. So yeah, maybe all total, the cost of that steer and having it butchered and put in my freezer, you know, let's just say maybe around $600-700, something like that. So it comes out to be pretty cheap. I'm not going to do the math in my head. You guys could grab a calculator and do that. But even if you, I was thinking about it, and even if you don't have the means to buy or raise your own steer or own meat, you can go to a local farmer. Anybody that raises cattle, talk to them, or go to the sale barn and just buy one straight from the sale barn or straight from the field. You figure around here, market price for steers, well, on the high end, we'll say $2, making nice round numbers. $2 a pound. You get an 800-pound steer. There's $1,600 there, plus your processing fee. You know, you're gonna probably be around $2,000 to put that meat in your freezer. And 800-pound steer, you're probably gonna get, well, let's just say 400 pounds of meat, like we did on this one. So you're gonna looking at around $5 a pound, or actually less, for fresh beef. And it's the only way to go. It's the only way to go. So I'm gonna get this stuff put in the freezer. I mean, we've already got some beef left over from the last steer we had butchered, but we like to keep a lot of it. A lot of it we have ground in a burger. We get the choice steaks, and then some roast, a couple roast. But a lot of it just gets put into ground beef because we use that the most. So there's a whole bunch of beef back here. Almost 400 pounds. So I'm gonna get this put in the freezer. Then when I get back out to the shop and do some Squarebody stuff. Alright, back in the shop where we need to be. Got old Squeaky up on stands, kind of leveled out, because I'm gonna have to make sure my drive shaft angles, everything is good with this thing. Just gonna have to double check everything, make sure everything's right. So what we got going on is I got to pull the drive shaft out. Probably not going to show any of that because it's happened several times on this truck on video, so just go back and watch some of the other ones. But I got to put this solid pillow block bearing in place of the factory rubber housing bearing deal they got going on, which is fine, but there's a little bit too much give in it. This right here, a lot of truck pulling guys running two-piece drive shafts. They're pushing out 800-900 horsepower, 8,000-9,000 RPM, pulling a 40,000 pound sled, and they got this in place. So yeah, I'm gonna take some of what I know from the old truck pulling days and put it towards race truck stuff, because race truck. All right, so I'm gonna get this drive shaft out, get it on the bench. We'll start figuring out, make sure this thing works. It should. I've done a little bit of measuring before I ordered it, but you never know. All right, we got the drive shaft out. Found out something else interesting. My two bolts that hold the transmission mount to the crossmember were gone. I don't know when they left the chat, but I do know for a fact that they were in there at No Name Nationals before I done the drag race, because I do remember double checking those, make sure they were tight during the drag race and before we done the burnout. So I know they were there during that period. But I've put a few, probably a couple hundred miles on this truck since then. So who knows when they came out, but I put some new bolts in there with some red Loctite. Hopefully they'll stay in this time. But got the drive shaft out here on the bench. I'm gonna try to get this carrier bearing off. Now I do have this, it is cheap. It's just a cheap Chinese set bearing puller. Hopefully this will work out okay. Because this rubber bushing, it was so wore out, it just slipped off. So I'm able to just get to the bearing itself. Now if you don't have a set like this, what I normally do before I got this apparatus is I just cut these with a cutoff wheel or a torch. Take the bearing out. Then you got some cool ball bearings for shooting out of a slingshot or something. But just keep cutting on it till you get to the race. Cut the race off. Boom. There you go. Put your new one on. I'm going to try to get this off with this apparatus here, this puller. Hopefully it'll work out okay and not be too frustrating. We'll see. Well, all that did was prove how much of a piece of garbage that puller is. It just, everything bent on it. I don't even think it moved it. So, we go to plan B. Go get the death wheel on a grinder and cut this thing off. So I realized I probably had my fat head in the way most of the time. But once you get all the rest of that garbage out of here, get the bearing, race, outside stuff cut off. And if you just cut a deep enough slot, sometimes just on one side, you can go ahead and cut all the way through. If you get into the shaft a little bit, it ain't gonna hurt nothing. But if you just cut into it a little bit, or most of the way through, you can usually take a cold chisel and split it. Now, as you can see, we actually moved it a little bit, and if my press is a little bit better, or my puller was a little bit better, it would have pulled it all the way off. I probably could have just added some heat to it. It may have came off, but I like making sparks. So, I'll get this off there, and hopefully my pillow block bearing will fit on there. Well, it's split, but I'll go ahead and cut on the other side and come all the way off. Alright, it's off of there now. Just a little bit of cleaning up to do. I'll take some emery cloth, clean this up, because actually this outside is where it was hanging up, where it kind of got rusty and pitted. Like I said, I probably could have, with some heat, maybe some penetrating oil or something, could have got that off there with that puller, but that puller's junk. Don't buy one. It's cheap from eBay. I think it served its purpose once on some project. I don't remember what it was, but now it's junk. Alright, I've already test fit it. It does slide up on there. It just takes a couple little taps with a hammer, but I'm gonna put some anti-seize on this before I put the bearing on there. Lock it down with the set screws, and then we'll have to I'll probably pull the bracket out that this mounts to, re-drill the holes, or I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, because this is actually a little shorter as far as the center line, which is going to be, I think, to my advantage to get my driveline angle better. Remember how I told you those cross-member bolts for the transmission mount were gone? Well, I was inspecting everything, just kind of looking it over, laying under there. I got the front drive shaft in, and the carrier bearing mounted. That all's good. Started the truck up, put it in high gear, run about 5,000 RPM with just that shaft in there, just to see if the carrier bearing, make sure just that part of it is smooth, and it was smooth. Didn't feel nothing. So I was just kind of laying underneath there, deciding if I need to go ahead and put my drive shaft loops in now, or go ahead and put the rear shaft in, take it for a test drive, whatever. Anyways, I was laying underneath there just kind of contemplating life, looking around. I happened to look at the bell housing. Yeah, it's busted. Not a big deal. I have other bell housings. Now, if you guys have been watching, you know that I picked up a heavy-duty steel shatterproof bell housing. Well, it didn't make it into the truck this go-round because, let me show you, it's hanging here on the wall. This hole is not big enough around to go over the input shaft bearing housing that the throwout bearing rides on. I'd either have to have this machined out or machine the housing, and at the time I was trying to make the No Name Nationals, make a couple passes, everything's gonna be okay. I thought. So anyways, not a big deal. Not a big deal. It could have been a big deal. Yeah, this could have been a really big deal if I wouldn't have caught it. So it's a good thing I caught it. I mean, I've got other aluminum bell housings, so that's not a big deal. I could have this out, put it back in this evening, have it ready to go again. But I think I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to go ahead and try to make that steel bell housing work. So there we go. The snowball effect in full effect again. That's all right. That's how it goes. So I think what I'm going to do is instead of dragging this video out any longer on what I'm going to do with this thing, I'm going to leave you hanging and catch up with this on another video. Now, between this and my other projects I got going on, you know, I've got the new truck that I just got from the auction. We've got to do something with that. Got to see if that engine runs, do some cleanup on it. So, not really sure how it's all going to play out as far as timeline, but we do know need a bell housing for Squeaky. Drive shaft, it's done. I had to take a laser level or laser sight and line everything up, because another thing I thought of while I was putting it together, yeah, I'm kind of getting on a little rabbit trail, but that's how I do things. As I was trying to line everything up, the height of that pinion, or that pillow block bearing, worked out perfectly. It had my primary, or the first drive shaft, perfectly in line with the engine center line. Everything was perfect. Great. But I kind of got eyeballing everything, and these 14 bolt rear ends that I've got in this truck, because it's got a 3/4 ton rear end in it, the pinions are actually offset to the passenger side a little bit, so not straight in line. So to get everything straight in line, I didn't want it, you know, I didn't want a bunch of angles in the two-piece drive shaft. So I put my laser sight on there, lined the primary shaft up straight with in between the two yokes from the transmission to the rear end. Had to move the pinion, or that pillow block bearing, the carrier bearing, over just a little bit. Not a big deal. Drill a couple holes, wallered one hole out just a little bit, and actually able to upgrade to 1/2-inch bolts, holding it to the bracket instead of 5/8 bolts. So yeah, I've had pretty good headway on the drive shaft deal. Contemplating on if I'm going to do the drive shaft loops right now, or wait till just put it together, take it for a test drive. But, so yeah, here we go. Big snowball, but it's a good snowball. I'm glad I caught it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and end it off here. I'll get a game plan together, figure out what I'm going to do, and you'll be the first ones to know, because it'll be on this channel right here on Squarebody Stuff. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. A little bit of a different video, I guess, maybe starting out with going to the processing plant to pick up beef. Ended up with, we're pulling the transmission, replacing a bell housing, but that's just the way it goes. So until next time, y'all keep your square bodies rolling. Inspect your bell housings, check all your bolts, and we'll catch you later.